And welcome into the Thursday edition, Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser, intern Mark here with you on this Thursday morning. We got a lot to get to on the program today. Titans are making moves left and right. We've got Ben McKee from GoVols 24/7 coming up at 6:30. Joe, because we're not going to have a ton of time to talk about it today, let me just go ahead and say for all our listeners out there, we've made it. College football season, in my opinion, I guess it's already started last week, but it begins today. We got some games today. Week 1 coming up this weekend. We made it. It's college football season, baby. And I could not be more fired up.
Congrats to us. Hey, now that you mention it, what's the best game tonight? I'm kind of not ready for the games tonight, but I'm excited.
I don't think that there's great ones tonight.
No, nothing great, but there's like 3 or 4, right? I think.
We have tonight Rutgers versus Howard.
Okay.
NC State, Western Carolina. Wake Forest, North Carolina, A&T. UCF plays tonight against New Hampshire. I would assume, there's quite a few games tonight.
The NC State game's interesting for the Vols fans who, looking toward next week.
Here's, not bad, North Carolina, Minnesota.
Oh, yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah. No, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
I would say that is probably the best one. North Carolina, Minnesota.
North Carolina, Minnesota. We'll take that. And then, again, NC State, you can get a look at Grayson McCall and NC State.
Here's another one. It's not bad, depending on how deep into the weeds you want to go. Coastal Carolina, Jacksonville State. Not bad.
That's not bad either. Okay.
So, got a few tonight.
Nice. Congrats to us.
I will be scouting NC State.
Yeah.
That's what I'll be doing.
Yes. They're Grayson McCall, man. The guy's been a quarterback for a long time.
Yes.
He is still hanging around. Those guys can be dangerous.
So I just want to congratulate everyone. We've gotten there. College football season is upon us. We'll take your thoughts on our program all day long. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. A lot of moves around the entire league, but specifically with the Tennessee Titans. So let's just jump right into it. Hassan Haskins, as soon as I saw him get cut, I did think, I wonder if he ends up with the Harpster. And he did. He ends up with the Harpster out there with L.A. Not a huge surprise there. So Hassan Haskins no longer a member of the Tennessee Titans, nor is Elijah Molden, who was traded from the Titans to the Chargers yesterday. So we're going to get more specifically into that one here in just a minute. Braden Arvison gets cut from the Titans, did not make it through to the practice squad, and is now a member of the Green Bay Packers. So I guess that new, we talk about in hockey, the road to Nashville goes through Milwaukee. I guess the road to Green Bay goes through Nashville now in the National Football League with Malik Willis, who looked very good in a Packers uniform practicing yesterday, by the way. And now Braden Arvison, the newest members of the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting with Braden Arvison. I wondered if there was a team out there that was in a situation. Look, I guess basically your Packers were not in a great backup QB situation and not in a great kicker situation, as we've learned. But that, of course, makes it very interesting moving forward. Did they just find a long-term excellent kicker in the league that the Titans could have had? The Titans let him go. I'd also love to know if had Arvison not been picked up, would the Titans have stashed him away and used a practice squad spot to keep him around, keep him in the organization? Don't know. But now we're going to be able to watch him and compare and contrast. All these kickers that leave the Titans, they go on to other places. And, Cairo Santos is just, the guy misses 4 field goals against Buffalo. Vrabel cuts him. Well, Rob cuts him. And boom, all of a sudden he can't miss. Who else have you got? Greg Joseph did some pretty good things elsewhere. Obviously, Suck Up.
I was about to say,
we reclaimed his game elsewhere. So is Arvison going to be the latest as the Titans continue to kind of go with veteran guys?
Can't you see that week 3 game now of Malik Willis leading the Packers down the field to set up a game-winning field goal attempt from Braden Arvison in Nissan Stadium?
What?
It could happen.
Poetry. What? Oh, man. That's just that's a Hallmark card.
It is. What do you make of the Elijah Molden deal? I got to say, I did not see that one coming. Elijah Molden to the Chargers. Obviously they've made a ton of moves at the safety spot, bringing in Quandre Diggs. Jamal Adams is in there. What do you make of the Molden move being traded from the Titans to the LA Chargers in exchange for a 7th-round pick?
Yeah, that's not one. We've been kind of projecting some of these moves, the Malik Willis Packers, the Ernest Jones, but Molden was not one that I anticipated, and I'm a little surprised by that. I know that Justin Mello, who friend of the show, gets a lot of this stuff, had a tweet about his unhappiness here. And if you're Elijah Molden, I get it. You're a starter, and then all of a sudden, here comes a safety. Well, you're still kind of a starter. Up here comes another safety, and now you're bumped on the depth chart. From the Titans' perspective, though, I thought Molden was a good just chess piece if you get hurt. I mean, he has played corner. Obviously, they don't view him as a corner, but if you had to play him at nickel and move McCreary outside because you have injuries, then you could do it. So to me, there's more value in that this year than the 7th round pick. But I do take that tweet into account. I mean, it's also, I don't know, being around Molden, it's kind of hard for me to buy that he's going to, throw up a huge stink about the bottom line is he hasn't been able to stay on the field. He's trying to.
I was going to say, what has Elijah Molden done to earn the right to where he's so mad that that's going to be some problem for the Titans moving forward?
And I don't know that that's. I mean, again, I'm citing. I haven't seen anybody say he has just been unbearable or whatever. It's just the fact is, I don't blame him for being unhappy.
Sure,
But yeah, was it that? Was it that forced them in any way, or is it just like, well, he's not going to play and do right by him, and we'll take a 7th round pick? I mean, I guess you could look around and say, like the role I'm talking about. Well, you could also, throw Jamal Adams in there. I mean, they're going to have Trey Avery and Gabe Jeudy-Lally available at corner on the practice squad. So, and
don't have to pour one out for Trey Avery. Great day on the program. He's still around.
That's right. He's still around. And look, I mean, the answer also could be, I mean, it's like, in what order are things happening? Because the answer also might be, that safety that they picked up on waivers. Oh yeah, we definitely like him better than Elijah. So now he's totally expendable.
Yeah, could be. And maybe that's the way they view it. I just saw that yesterday, and I was like, okay. I mean, you could make an argument that's your third safety right now. I mean, you've got Diggs, you've got Hooker. Like, if one of those guys goes down, like Molden would be the guy on the field, right?
I think so.
So,
yeah, I would have.
To me, that weakens your team this year. Now, look, they've like I said, they've addressed the safety position, so maybe they feel great about it. I don't know, but I did not see that one coming when it came to possible trade chips yesterday, especially for 7th round pick.
Right. And Chef Ran on the YouTube chat says Diggs is 10 times better. We're not comparing him to Diggs. We're like Robby said, it's about depth. I mean, in this league, my goodness, if you've been watching the Titans the last few years, you understand that the 2s and 3s will come into play, right? And so, again, if the guy they picked up, they love him, they can plug him right in, and you have Jamal Adams. And so, even though we've talked extensively about Jamal Adams and coverage and how they're not friends, he could obviously be plugged in there, and maybe it's not that big of a difference between Molden and Adams. Now you had another guy. So, but
by the way, Jamal Adams is not practicing right now too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess he's going to be available for week 1, but you never know with that guy.
Right. And it's not like he was necessarily supposed to be on some like total shutdown plan as far as I knew this camp, but that's what it's been.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting situation there. And when it comes to the Molden part of this, I look at their safety group right now. Like, I do like Diggs. To Chef Rand's point on YouTube, I like Diggs. I think Diggs, Hooker, if they can stay healthy, got a chance to be pretty good back there. So I like that. But I do have questions. Like, even with Molden, like, I think Molden would have been fine back there. Is he a big-time playmaker? Probably not. But I think he's at least played football. He's been back there. I know that, for the most part, when he's been on the field for the Titans, it's been in the nickel role. So it is a little bit, kind of a mystery as to what he's going to be back there at safety. But now let's say, Hooker has had problems staying healthy here with this team. Diggs getting up there a little bit when it comes to NFL age. What happens if one of them goes down? Like, what do you do now if you're the Titans? And like I said, Jamal Adams isn't practicing. So he's been having health issues basically since 2020. So I guess I'm just a little bit worried about the depth in terms of Are they going to be able to stay healthy at that spot? Because they've got a lot of guys in that spot right now who have not stayed healthy the last few years.
Yeah. I mean, the entire secondary could be really good and way different. I know this tweet's making the rounds, and it's like a Bears kind of like fan account, like a Bears film study account, and it's like all these advanced stats of how bad the Titans, like the Bears are gonna eat. Look, the Titans did this and this and this in their secondary. It's like they have like nobody back from that. I mean, I guess they have McCreary and Hooker, but like how would you compare like last year's secondary? Also a different defense, different defensive coordinator, and actually two corners who can play and a safety too. So that's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
But well, for the Bears, I think they'll see them. But obviously, how is it going to be all year that they're going to have these guys? Are they going to have the secondary? If so, yeah, I like their chances, but there is a lot of injury history in there.
Kyle in Shelbyville says, I checked out our new safety yesterday, Woods. Really like his game. He's better than Molden. There you go.
Okay.
Well, if that's the case, then
did you get into Jared's film room?
Well, got to be careful going in there.
Is Jared's film room like the library, like a microfiche? Anybody can come in there and just like sit in the seat and learn things about football.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Titans making moves. Lots of moves going on around the NFL. We'll take your reaction to what was the initial 53-man roster. Now it's been shuffled a little bit, which we knew would happen. More of your thoughts on our phone and text lines, which as always are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
Ran, you're in a nice cap situation. Might that tempt you to make one more big move if something nice presents itself, or will you lean towards fiscal responsibility that helps you next year and keeps you in good standing?
Yeah. No, I mean, we're going to always be fiscally responsible. I think if you look at last year, this time of year, and probably throughout most of the part of the year, we were in the top 5 in cap space throughout the year. And I mean, you have to leave yourself some operating costs, just for injuries, signing guys, if you have to place guys on IR. So we're going to be responsible there. If opportunity presents itself, that's too good for us to pass up, we're definitely going to look at it. Definitely not opposed to doing that and making this team better. But just to go out and just spend money to spend it, we're never going to do that.
That was Rand Carthon yesterday. Capital J Journalism by Paul Kuharsky from paulkuharsky.com there.
Thank you for asking about the cap, PK. The real cap.
He said they're always going to be fiscally responsible, but did not totally shut down. That another move could happen at some point.
Yeah, that's right.
Just got to leave the door open.
They have made. They've made some moves, man.
Yes, they have.
We'll see how they all work out, but you cannot say that they have been sitting on their hands this offseason.
No doubt about that. No doubt about it. Highlights for the practice squad. Mason Kinsey back on the practice squad, which has become an annual tradition at this point. Bryce Oliver, also at the wide receiver position on the practice squad. Jabari Small, former Vols running back, on the practice squad. And we've already mentioned Trey Avery, Gabe Judy Lally, Lavaldor, and Corey Levin, also on the practice squad as well. So some familiar names down there for the Titans on the practice squad.
Cole Spencer is a guy who I think is a Callahan project. Keep that name in mind. I think in future years, at least as like a depth piece on the active roster potentially. So good for Jabari Small. Yeah, did you see the Kinsey?
Yeah,
pretty fantastic tweet by Mason Kinsey of Mo, the bartender, throwing Barney out. Hey! Throwing him out of the bar, but then all of a sudden he just ends up right behind him, still back in the bar.
Did not end up with the Detroit Lions.
Yeah. What did the Lions do?
Have they found wide receivers?
I honestly don't know. That's a good question. I mean, there were some pretty decent receivers, like Noah Brown from the Texans.
Yeah.
Like I think they gave up. I mean, it doesn't speak well of him that I think they just lit $3 million on fire, but he's out. And I mean, that's to me, it seems like a guy who could help teams that are receiver hungry, but maybe not.
Chef Rand says DMR will beat out one of Chig or Wiley. I'm calling it. That guy's a gamer. There's some Chef Rand on YouTube, which we have not confirmed or denied is Rand Carthon in our YouTube chat.
No, it could be actually Rand.
I don't know.
It's possible.
I'm just saying we have not confirmed it. We have not denied it.
That's true. We don't know that it's not.
Yeah.
Well, that's a Jared take, Chef Rand. So if you're comfortable with that, you can let that stand. I don't know if you can delete takes out of YouTube, but no, honestly, that's not. I think DMR could potentially have a role. Right now, I would slot him behind them, but like the practice squad, when you look at everything now that they did the initial roster, they made these moves, but also like the practice squad and how they've done it with the waivers. Like DMR is a great example of a guy who like that actually could have been scooped up. It's the young guy like that the other teams who do a good job and are watching every shred of film, they all have to do that. Like you have to watch every shred of film. I did a story a few years ago on like how they found Khalif Raymond. He had played like 6 snaps for the Giants in some preseason game, but they were like, hey, actually, I think there's something here. And they signed Khalif Raymond. And as we know, he's now the Lions' 3rd receiver, but also he had a nice run here in Nashville. So they all watch every single movement of each other in the preseason games. Then they grab people, and it's the young player that has potential upside that you protect. And then like a Trey Avery, the Titans were not worried about Trey Avery. Not to pick on Trey Avery, but they're not worried about Trey Avery getting scooped up. He's been in the league. People know what he is. And gay. And so he's on the practice squad. So but DMR, meanwhile, interesting on the tight end position, though, is that Nick Vannett, who we all thought was tight end 3, is out.
Yeah. And
he's a practice squad.
Right.
But still, he's not on the active roster with Odakoya is, and good for Odakoya.
Good for Odakoya. Another move made yesterday, and shout out to TD for being the first I saw to report this, but Rashad Weaver out with the Tennessee Titans. So we talked a lot about Weaver yesterday with Kuharski, about the camp that he had and how, I mean, basically it felt like he was invisible. And I guess the Titans agreed because he is no longer on the team.
Is Brian Summers upset? I'd like to know after his 3 pressures in the preseason game.
Well, let us know, Brian.
I am surprised. I mean, I'm surprised that he's cut. I thought he'd be down the depth chart some, but they obviously feel, and they did, by the way, they made a waiver pickup there.
They did.
So, but Harrell's emergence, and look, I give Mike Herndon some credit. Caleb Murphy, moved past Rashad Weaver. So Caleb Murphy's that young guy who, in the last year, it seems to me, has put on a decent amount of good weight to try to be able to play in this league. And I still don't think we're going to see him much on the field unless they have injury issues. But he has moved past Rashad Weaver, and Rashad Weaver is kind of an example of what you see in camp can sometimes does matter, does mean something, because it wasn't great. It was just he was just sort of there.
Well, think about that kind of, I guess, going from the Arden Key suspension, which was a suspension, by the way. You have to be able to, if you're appealing something, it is a suspension. So just continuing to throw that out there for the people who continue to talk about it.
Fake news. Fake news.
I mean, everybody assumed that. I remember, we were on the practice field the day all that started to come out, and Rashad Weaver, very popular interviewee that day, because it felt like it was going to be his starting spot, right? Like it was, all right, well, Key's out, and it's going to be Landry on one side, Weaver on the other. And think about going from that day to where we are now, and saying to us at that time, yeah, he's not going to be on the team. He's going to get cut.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty wild transformation of his kind of how he was viewed in the span of about 4 weeks.
Yeah. And the good thing for the Titans is, I mean, I think it is, obviously he has been underwhelming as a player and all that stuff, but he lost weight. He wanted that opportunity. I mean, it's not like he's just, throwing his helmet out there and not trying. I mean, I think the good news for the Titans is, I mean, he's been passed over by other guys. Not saying they're going to be great, but I don't think it's purely a case of just a guy completely, cashing in his chips. I mean, I think Harrell is a pretty good football player. And, Murphy missed a sack in the last game, but boy, he had some juice coming off the edge. So, they're upgrading, and they're upgrading. And as Dustin and Hopkins will point out, they're basically purging the entire 20 and 21 draft classes now.
Yeah, for sure. Caleb Murphy clearly is gifted at getting after the passer. Now, we've always kind of wondered about the other parts of playing that position with him. Like, can he set the edge? How good is he in the run game? Is he kind of a one-trick pony when it comes to rushing the passer in the NFL? Because you can't really be that. Like, it's unless you're just elite at one skill, it's hard to do that in the NFL. So I think he's clearly gotten better from last year to this year and left enough of an impression in camp where they feel good about it. And that's always the question, like how much of it is other guys improving, maybe Jalen Harrell taking them by surprise, and how much it is Rashad Weaver falling off as a player. I mean, the real answer is it's probably a combination of the two, but I would love to know kind of how they view that part of it.
Yeah, and scheme fit and stuff like that. But again, I mean, I thought it was a good move for him to lose the weight, and I thought he looked a little bit quicker. So to me, it was like, okay, I mean, with their situation, that'll certainly be enough for him to be in the rotation. So how much of him not making an impact is he doesn't fit? I don't know. Maybe losing the weight was a bad idea, But I do think part of the answer is, I mean, Harrell is a good find. A 7th round, Harrell's a very good find. You've watched enough of him now, where it's like, I mean, he's just a solid all-around football player. The Harpster develops good football players. So say whatever you want about him, but he develops good football players.
Rashad, we need you to go back to the Cracker Barrel, put weight back on. Come back in about 3 weeks. We'll see where you're at.
There you go.
Put about 10, 15 pounds back on.
Yeah, you could probably do that at Cracker Barrel in 3 days, right?
There's no probably. I could. 615-737-1025, our phone number. 615-737-1025. We'll have Ben McKee from GoVols 24/7 join us coming up next. The best and worst things in sports coming up at 6:45. So we'll take your best things, your worst things on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Thursday morning. College football is back. It's a great day here on the program. And to help us talk about the Tennessee Volunteers, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in our friend Ben McKee from GoVols 24/7. Ben, good morning. How we doing?
Good morning. Doing well. Appreciate you having me on.
Appreciate you taking time to be with us this morning, Ben. So I would assume, the hope is that you're not finding out too much about Tennessee this weekend against Chattanooga, because probably not going to be very much of a close game. But I am interested to see, probably specifically starting off in the secondary, what that looks like. How big of a role does Boo Carter play? What does the star position look like? What's kind of the latest that you've heard on what we could see from Tennessee in the secondary in week one?
Yeah, I'll be watching that secondary just as closely as it sounds like you'll be watching it. Again, I don't know that we're going to learn a lot about Tennessee as a whole, but for an FCS opponent, I really do think that this Chattanooga team is going to be able to, I guess I can word it in the sense of give Tennessee as much of a challenge as they possibly can. I mean, I think this is a really good FCS team for
Did we lose Ben?
We might have lost Ben.
the fall. They have a receiver who gave Alabama some issues last year in Tuscaloosa. Now, I do believe that Chattanooga Alabama game was the week before the Iron Bowl, so don't know how locked in Alabama was, but still they were able to make some plays. So for an FCS opponent, I do think that they'll be able to challenge Tennessee, and again, don't have any sweeping takeaways or judgments from this one. But I do think it'll be fair to assess them to a certain extent, as long as you're responsible with that assessment. And unfortunately for Tennessee, this is a game that you can lose more than you can win in terms of the public court of opinion, right? Like if you go out there and you play well and you have 3 interceptions, well, okay, you're supposed to do that against Tennessee Chattanooga. If you go out there and you play poorly, then the sky is going to be falling, and Tennessee's going 8-4 and not even sniffing the playoffs, of course. But Ricky Gibson and Jamal McCoy theoretically will be your starting corners. I say theoretically because Ricky Gibson, the third, was dealing with a hamstring injury the last couple of weeks of camp, so I don't know how available he will be. But there is a lot of confidence in that cornerback tandem when both are fully healthy. Ricky Gibson was making plays prior to the hamstring issue. Jamal McCoy, his teammates and coaches have raved about his playmaking ability. One of his teammates last week, I believe it was Andre Turntine, Tennessee safety, who will start at safety, mentioned that McCoy has been making plays on the practice field that he has not seen defensive backs make on the practice field. So they feel good about their corner tandem. Obviously, a lot of eyes on that star position. I think Boo Carter and Christian Harrison are probably going to get split the first team reps. They say that they feel good about both of those guys heading into the opener, but certainly that job is open for grabs as they begin game action. And then at safety, it's expected to be Andre Turntine and Will Brooks. And I think fair or foul, Tennessee fans are watching Will Brooks to see how he can stand up against competition like NC State and Oklahoma, given that he's a former walk-on.
Yeah, I was going to say, Ben, you mentioned the court of public opinion. I mean, that's where I immediately go is Will Brooks, and it's a great story, but it's also, I think, in this coaching tenure, we've had like these veteran guys in the secondary who are solid guys and they trust them, but also you're like, there's got to be a higher talent level if you want to, take things to a higher level overall, right? That's in general, right? So I feel like Will Brooks is going to be almost like, one mistake and it's going to be the internet's going to be set on fire, which, fair or not. Is there after those guys, Turntine and Brooks, like who would be your third safety at this point?
Jacoby Thomas, the Middle Tennessee State transfer. And I do think that Jacoby has had a fine camp. I just think that, Will Brooks is Jalen McCullough 2.0. You talk about the trust of the coaching staff. Will Brooks probably has as much trust as Jalen McCullough did, if not more. And I believe Jalen McCullough, nobody has started more games for Tennessee football, regardless of position, than Jalen McCullough. So Will Brooks, there's already a gnashing of teeth. Some fans are already irritated that a walk-on, I said former walk-on, I should not have said that. He is still currently a walk-on. And part of that is the NCAA stuff that they have had to deal with, and they still don't have their full allotment of scholarships to hand out, or else he would probably be on scholarship. There's a couple of guys on this roster like Gaston Moore and Deshaun Bishop as well. But Will Brooks, the coaches absolutely rave about him and say that he is another coach out there. They trust him to be where he is supposed to be, obviously, and get his teammates lined up. And he is coaching up his teammates on and off the field. They feel like he can make plays in space. We'll obviously see if that comes to fruition. That will ultimately determine whether he maintains that spot or whether they do try and slide Jacoby Thomas in there at some point. But he has the coaching staff's trust right now. And I do think the Will Brooks conversation, Will Brooks has earned that starting job at safety. There's no doubt about that. Like you said, it's a great story. But you can say that he has absolutely earned that job while also having the opinion that Tennessee should not be in a situation in year 4 to where they're having to start a walk-on at safety. Both of those things can be true. And that, to me, is kind of how I view the situation going into the season.
So, Ben, obviously on the offensive side, a lot of excitement about Nico at quarterback. I'm interested to see what sort of rotation develops at wide receiver. Heupel has been really talking up tight end with Holden Stays, Miles Kitzelman, Ethan Davis, and those 3 guys, and how this is a tight end room that they just really haven't had before under his tenure. What do you think Tennessee has with those 3 specifically in that tight end room?
Yeah, I think they have 3 different weapons. And I agree with Josh Heupel. And maybe I'm buying into what he and the other coaches are saying too much. And ultimately, the way that they play in games will determine whether that was false hope or not. But even in scrimmages this fall camp, all 3 of those tight ends made plays. Holden Stays and Ethan Davis, I think they're the better pass catchers or receiving threats. Miles Kitzelman, the Alabama transfer, is more of your all-around tight end, probably the best blocker of the 3, and that's why you're going to see him on the field quite often. But he's also surprised Tennessee's coaching staff since he got here from Alabama with his ability to make plays in the passing game as well. So he's probably your best all-around tight end at the moment when you factor in the blocking aspect. But Ethan Davis and Holden Stays, especially Ethan Davis, I mean, his ceiling is absolutely tremendous, and he can play this game for a very, very long time. So I think that tight end room is going to be a huge weapon for Tennessee, and we all expect Nico to have a great year, but he is still a first-time starting quarterback at this level, and I think that tight end position is going to be a safety valve of sorts for Nico. I think they're going to be able to do a lot of different things with that position, and I would say that tight end position is, I mean, after the defensive line, probably the strongest unit on the team when you look at the amount of talent in that room and the amount of depth.
Wow. Yeah, I'm excited to watch. I have a feeling we're going to see Ethan Davis with some big chunk plays this year, even if it's not a steady diet of it. He's going to be fun to watch. So at receiver, Ben, do you buy that we're actually going to see more of a rotation, more depth utilized? And also on that note, is Brazel going to be, is Brazel going to be a significant add this year?
To your first question, I reluctantly am buying into them playing more receivers. I think they're being genuine. I mean, that has been one of the talking points this camp, whether it be the receivers themselves or Kelsey Pope, the receivers coach, Josh Heupel, Joey Halsley. They've all been adamant that they're going to play more and rotate more and that they want to. But we'll see if they actually do that when the bullets are flying. I certainly think they have more depth and more receivers to play than they have had their first 3 years. I think they have more guys that they trust. So I think he's going to be a significant piece. I know that he's going to be, somebody that catches 8 passes a game for $150. I don't think he's going to put up Cedric Tillman type numbers. I think you're going to see more Javonte Payton type numbers. And what I mean when I say that is, if you remember back in, I guess that was year 1 under Josh Heupel, Javonte Payton, I think he had 6 or 8 touchdowns somewhere in there that first season. Right. But he only had like 16 catches on the season. So it was like an early first quarter, first half touchdown, and then you wouldn't hear from Javonte Payton the rest of the game. I'm not saying that Brazel is going to be to that extent to where he makes an early splash play and then you don't hear from him the rest of the game. I think he's more well-rounded than Javonte Payton. But I think in terms of the explosiveness and the splash plays, I think it's going to be similar in that regard. I think Brew McCoy and Squirrel White are are going to be your go-to receivers in the slot and out on the perimeter. I think Brew McCoy is the one guy that has true number one receiver type potential, and then the slot receivers in this offense just feast overall. So I think Squirrel's going to get a lot of targets on top of him obviously being a really good receiver. And then I think Brazel's going to fit in nicely and be able to provide more of that Javonte Payton role more consistently, provide those splash plays consistently. And the defensive backs have raved about him as well throughout camp. And several have said that he is the toughest to defend just because of his size and his ability to run. And Ricky Gibson said that he's the one that he dislikes going up against the most because you can be in perfect position as a defensive back, but because of Brazel's size and his body control at the point of the catch, high pointing the football, like you can be in perfect position and not be able to swat the pass away. So I do think that Brazel is going to be a significant piece to this offense, but I also think that he's going to play off of Brew and Squirrel.
Well, Ben, we've made it. College football is here. Looking forward to getting things started this weekend. Appreciate so much you taking time to be with us today, and we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Always enjoy joining y'all, and hope y'all are doing well, and hope y'all have a great weekend and enjoy some college football.
Thanks, brother.
Heck
You as
yeah.
well. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Ben McKee, our guest on Robby and Rexrode from GoVols 24/7. We'll take your reaction to what Ben had to say. We've got the best and worst things in sports coming up in the next segment as well. We'll take your best things, your worst things on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
The best and worst of the sports week. Now on Robby and Rexrode.
On ESPN.
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
This is the worst. You look like you're feeling sorry for yourself. I don't even know. Unbelievable.
He's one of one. He is him.
This is a Coke bottle. It's not a crystal ball.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
Okay, let's go.
It is that time of the week, time for the best and worst things in sports. We'll take your best things, your worst things on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Joe Rexrode, kick us off with your best and worst things in the world of sports.
Okay, so I'm doing one of those both, the duality of sports. I'm going to do one thing that is both. Okay, so which kind of leaves some obvious low-hanging fruit for you guys if you'd like it.
Sure.
So I'm centering it on best and worst is the Connor Stallions documentary because, first of all, it absolutely represents the best of like what we were just talking about in this week. College football fans are absolutely insane. They are insane. And so, like the Buckeye fan who appears in this doc, you haven't seen it yet.
I have not.
So this dude's name is like Brohio, and he like appears in this doc in like, in like full mask, like he's some sort of like, terrorist talking to 60 Minutes, I mean, it's like, I mean, it's amazing. Like, then the stuff that they went through to whatever, to find out all this information on Connor Stallions and everything. The best is like just the absolute insanity. Like Michigan State and Ohio State fans are just and Michigan fans are in this constant just war on the internet. And it's like all the Michigan fans are like, you guys, this is so dumb. And then all the Michigan State and Ohio State fans keep screenshotting all their the same people's tweets from like when Tressel got cheater. You are a dirtball. You want anything you do, you should be out of this game. We do it with integrity. It's like just like constant. It's amazing. And also like best in that is, I'm not a big like Dave Portnoy fan. He's a Michigan man who was in the doc. It's so awesome because at one point, like Connor Sanders was like, "Well, I don't think that I recall being at the Central Michigan." And Portnoy's like, "Oh man, Connor told me he was at that game. So awesome! I love this dude." He totally sold him out in the doc. But also the worst is that too because it's like, I mean, again, Michigan Twitter is like, "This doc exonerates everyone."
Yeah.
And then the Michigan State and Ohio State fans are like, this doc proves that they're total. It's like, look,
whatever you believed heading into it,
yeah,
it's been reinforced.
He cheated. We all know he cheated, and that's obvious. But also, we don't know what Harbaugh knew. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, Harbaugh gave him a game ball, but he was good at doing signs. You can steal signs.
Yeah, you can.
So, like, there's no conclusion, and yet everyone thinks they have a conclusion. And it does remind me a little bit of politics. I mean, it does. It reminds like humans now are just very much like, you know what? Whatever I believe is true, I'm going to listen to you, and you tell me I'm right that it's true. The end. So that's my worst.
There you go. Nick Keyser, your best and worst things in the world of sports.
It's been a joy to see all of the Nashville Predators fans' reactions on Facebook, Twitter, wherever you are a fan and are sharing your thoughts at. It's been fun looking at that this week. But I think it honestly is a major positive. I think it's something that if you're a fan, you've got to go, all right, a clear direction. And if you didn't see it July 1st, which you should have if you missed it, but I clearly think that now that this is done, it's over. The drama is over. I personally think for the next few years, this is the best outcome for the team and the organization. So if you're not on board with that, I think it's a lot clearer now than it's ever been, quite frankly. So I think that's a major positive. And also the return was phenomenal. I mean, a prospect, a goalie who could be serviceable at some point. If not, then that's okay. But, whatever. Worst in sports for me, and just because obviously I go to the games, season ticket holder, but losing 8 in a row, if you're a Nashville SC fan, absolutely sucks. And the fact that BJ Callahan has started things out and lost 2 in a row, that sucks for him. So, not much that he can do in this transition. But also on top of it, too, you have a new player throw out a slang word that has yet to be confirmed for what it was in the middle of the game. And so he's got some discipline coming his way. Not a good look for the team whatsoever, especially when you've lost 8 in a row. So those are my best and worst things in sports.
There you go. My best thing. Did you see the Nick Saban Verbo commercial that came out?
Yes.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I mean, look, the easy answer for my best thing would be thank God college football's back, and that's
I was leaving
our
it for
answer.
you.
I mean, that's my best thing.
Yeah.
But I did see the Nick Saban Verbo commercial yesterday, and even though his acting remains questionable because
he's a little stiff,
there were some doozies with the Aflac commercials that he used to do that were just tough to watch. This one's a little bit better, and it's actually pretty funny. Like when he's in the hot tub,
dad time,
and he's like, "This is dad time." It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
So good stuff from Nick Saban. It's good to see. Yeah, it's a new world we're living in. Saban lightening up a little bit. Belichick lightening up a little bit. By the way, apparently Belichick is going to be on with Peyton Manning every week on the Manning Cast, and they're coming out with a Friday show, like breaking down film of the Monday night matchup. Could be cool. So I'm looking forward to that. So Saban's Verbo commercial, my best thing in sports. The worst thing, your boy Dabo not taking calls anymore on his coach call-in show.
Oh, thank you.
It's pretty soft. And look, Dabo does some really stupid stuff, and I think that his approach on today's modern landscape of college football is probably not going to serve him well if there's not some adaptation that takes place as it relates to the transfer portal and all those things. I largely like him. Like, he's fine, but it's a little bit soft when it comes to we all know why this is happening. There's the Tyler from Spartanburg call last year when they were like 4-4 or whatever it was.
By the way, there's like 9 of him on vol calls when they lose a game.
I mean, go listen to some of these coaches call-in shows. There are lunatics out there that call in to every major college football program around the country. So you had one call that made you lose your mind a little bit on the air, and now all of a sudden we're shutting everything down and we're going to screen all the questions, no more calls, and you could text them in or email them. I mean, it's just so stupid and childish. You're getting paid $10 million a year. You can take some phone calls for 15 minutes or whatever it is on your radio show.
Incredibly weak. I'm not going to lie and say that I like Dabo at all, but I'm not like necessarily rooting for him to just completely be sucked into the middle of the earth. But I feel like we are watching like a really bad end. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm happy to be wrong, but man, there's a lot of signs that he just is not up.
I'll put it to you this way.
College football anymore.
This is a really big year for him in terms of like I think just the overall trajectory of that program and the future of it. It's not, even though I know there's a 12-team playoff and they could lose by 65 points on Saturday and still not be out of it. Not a great year for them to be playing Georgia. Like they need a pretty smooth sailing year this year.
Yeah. I don't, we've had some of these before. It would always be Alabama, right? It's like Alabama, pretty good game against like Michigan.
Yeah.
I remember when you were at Louisville or whatever, and it's like 49-3. Okay, great.
The classic
I feel
one
like
was
it's
USC.
possible. Yes,
USC was like barking at them before the game, and then they got beat by approximately 50.
Yeah,
it's good stuff.
Yeah, so that might be coming. I don't know. It is a big day.
Kirby's worried about his depth.
Well, I'm sure he is. It is a big day for them to earn some respect as a team. They still have a lot of talent on paper.
Do.
But it's so weak that he's not taking calls. That's one of the greatest things about college football is these coaches show and calls and stuff.
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, look, let's be real here. If Tennessee has a disappointing season, vol calls could get a little interesting toward the end of the year. It got certainly interesting with Butch Jones at the end of that.
Pruitt too.
Pruitt, yeah.
Absolutely.
Why in the world can't you beat Florida? What's going on?
No, I mean, like, can you imagine? I mean, that's and more for Tennessee than I don't know what it is at Clemson, but like at Tennessee, it's an absolute tradition. You cannot mess with that. Now, to me, no coach, and we'll see. I do worry that Heupel might be. I mean, it's where things are going. Again, it goes with the Deion thing. It's like, I just think I want, conversations and stuff that are friendly to me.
Just shut up, go to Calhoun's, take your phone calls, and walk out. That's all you got to do if you're hyper.
Get your jalapeno poppers
Yeah.
and go home.
It's all good. 615-737-1025, our phone number. We'll get back into the Titans, the roster moves that have been made coming up next. A lot of your Titans questions to get to as well. We'll do that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser, intern Mark here with you on this Thursday morning. We'll have Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports joining us to begin the 8 o'clock hour for his weekly visit. We'll get into the Titans and all things NFL with him. Talking Titans right now, taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025.
Real quick from William from Madison on the text line, he had a best and worst. Worse was thanks for always mentioning the White Sox. We can always mention how much they suck. And by the way, my Tigers are making a little run, 6 in a row. But his best was the Vanderbilt new beer can logo. Have you seen this?
Yeah, I have seen it. It looks cool.
Is it Conquer and Prevail Ale? Bringing back the Mr. Commodore from. I must say, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the can. So I perhaps will be able to report back next week on the beer itself.
Yeah, as you
cool idea.
It's a cool idea, as you can expect. It found its way on the Vol Twitter.
Oh, boy. What did they do with it? What did they do?
There was just a whole lot of, well, it's a good thing you guys did that because you're going to need a lot of those watching Vanderbilt football this year.
Nice.
So,
there you go.
God bless college football. It's back.
Yes.
615-737-1025, our phone number. I got one texted that says, Malik Willis has improved tremendously over the last 3 years. Packers offense fits him a little bit better because he's athletic. We'll have a few more quarterback runs if something does happen to Love. Great pickup by the Packers. Great opportunity to learn from LaFleur. It's from an unnamed texter on the text line.
A lot of greats. The only thing you were missing, great opportunity to learn from the great LaFleur. That's how Robby would fix your sentence.
Yeah.
So, hey, good for Malik. He's got an opportunity. There were different questions yesterday for Rand Carthon. I think Terry McCormick was like, is it this or is it this? And he's like, no, it's neither of those. Basically just thought he earned an opportunity. I mean, I will kind of agree with PK on the whole, they framed it as a competition, but it really was not.
It was never a competition.
I mean, yeah.
And we talked about that at the time.
I mean, the reps tell you, again, it's just like 5 years ago. Sometimes it feels like more, doesn't it? But 5 years ago, people talking about a Tannehill-Mariota competition. It's like, well, Tannehill has had 0 reps with the ones. How would he be competing for the starting job if he only runs with the twos?
But he ended up being the starter, so you were wrong.
Well, yes, exactly. That's exactly like Kuharski had fake news on the Arden Key. It turned out that he's not suspended, so it was wrong. Yeah. So, but in all seriousness, yeah, Willis was getting the 3s reps, and maybe you know what? I'm excited to watch him there. Maybe it'll keep taking steps. He could be a good backup. He could be a guy who at some point could.
I mean, hopefully
play some good football. I know you don't want him on the field, and of course, who wants backups on the field? And Stilly tried to hey, name your top 10 backups if you don't think Mason Rudolph's good. And
I know. I was going to ask you about that. Like, are you too much of a Mason Rudolph Bobo? Like, how do we feel?
Well, first of all, they played the thing where I'm like, what is he, like top 3? And then we went through it, and I think I put him like 6, right? Or something like that. So, again, now that's actual fake, dishonest commentary. But I don't think I am too much of. I think he's like Caroline asked the question, where is he among QB2s? And I said, I think I'm confident in saying he's top 10. And then I had Jared start, okay, list me 10 better. I mean, like 4 of the guys he listed are laughable. 3 are laughable. I mean, like yeah, so because
he said Case Keenum.
Yeah, he said Case freaking Keenum. I mean, just stop it. He's like, Mac Jones led the NFL in quarterback rating in the preseason. Oh, really?
Good for him.
Mason Rudolph went 3-1 last year. And luckily, I got TD. TD's like, he helps me so much. He's like, hey, don't forget this. Don't forget this. Whenever I'm yelling at Jared. But he's 8-4-1 as a starter.
I didn't know TD was your statistician.
TD is
in the Jared versus Joe argument.
TD knows that I need help.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. But yeah, Mason Rudolph was a good signing from the start. And again, for me, it's not just that he's playing well. He has really picked it up. Go back to the spring. If we're going to play audio clips of each other all day, I mean, you can find stuff of me saying, yeah, Rudolph kind of looks crappy out there. And it's not that at all. He's kind of caught fire. He's clicked in with the offense. If they had to go to Mason Rudolph, they'd have a chance to win a football game. And a lot of teams in this league cannot say that about their backup quarterback. So take that for what it's worth it. But backup quarterbacks in this league, in a lot of cases, are rough, which is how your Packers trade and give up something for Malik Willis. I mean, Exhibit A.
Yeah, I mean their situation is particularly bad, and look, I am interested to see how Willis continues to progress there. Lance on the text line, all Rashad Weaver did was rush straight up the field 95% of the time. He had 1.5 moves at best. We talked about the Weaver roster cut earlier in the show. I'm interested to see. I mean, I'm sure he'll probably land somewhere else. Like, he's been in the league long enough to where he'll land somewhere coming up. I'm interested to see if he does anything in his next stop. I mean, it just ended so abruptly here. We talked about the timeline of it. Like, it really did in about a 4-week span go from, well, looks like Arden Key's going to be suspended, Rashad Weaver's going to be the starter, to now he's not on the football team, which is a pretty wild. I mean, I'm sure something like that's happened before. That's a pretty wild transformation of his status in about a 4-week span.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I think Rashad Weaver is a great example of, because I watched a fair amount of him in college, and he was great. And I think he's a great example of, sometimes you have guys at that level, and it's still Power 5 football. You're still, in a lot of cases, going against guys who will also be in the NFL. But their speed and their power is enough at that level that they can just dominate without having to have a lot of moves. He doesn't have a lot of lateral quickness and stuff like that, right? He does. It's a good analysis of him. He doesn't have a lot of moves. Then you get to this level, and you got to have more than that, and some guys find it or have it, and some guys don't. You just, sometimes you're just a little bit too strong and fast for anybody at that level, and you get to this, and you have to develop more than that. It just hasn't happened for him. So I think he'll be on a team somewhere, but he's a guy. He's a guy in the league.
He's a guy. I got a text that says, Joe Rexrode, leader of the Boohoo Rudolph crew. Maddie says, you forgot Mac's appropriate title, Pro Bowl quarterback who led the preseason in QB rating.
Oh, that's
the
right.
full title.
Thank you. I just the dishonest arguments when you, again, have a bad take. If you have a bad take, own your bad take.
I mean, I'm trying to think backup quarterbacks, just really off the top of my head, that I think are clearly better than Rudolph. Fields, if you consider him a backup, I think clearly better. I would go. I mean, Jake Browning, with the way he played last year, I think you have to put him in the conversation.
And you brought him up the other day, and I was like, okay, yeah, I might do that. I might go with him.
I mean, if Jimmy G is healthy, he's probably better.
I'll do that
than Mason Rudolph. And I'm going down kind of just the list in my head here.
You mentioned Fields.
Yeah, Fields.
Winston.
I think Winston, I think, is certainly.
It's close, man.
It depends on what Jameis are you getting? Is he turning the ball over left and right? Because if so, there does reach.
You don't want that in your backup quarterback.
There reaches a point with Jameis of diminishing returns. He'll make some plays for you, but he'll also turn the football over.
Yeah, I mean, and Stilly's out here throwing Penix. Okay,
that was probably the dumbest one he said.
Incredibly dumb. I'm Tyrod Taylor. I would rather have Mason Rudolph right now than Tyrod Taylor at this point. I understand, again, like Jared said, that's a guy who has been a starter for a playoff team. Yes, that has happened in the past. I mean, Tyrod Taylor's been around a little bit.
Yes.
Who are you taking, Tyrod Taylor or Mason Rudolph?
I'll go Rudolph.
How about Wentz? He went Wentz wagon too.
If Wentz is healthy, I'd probably go Wentz.
Okay.
But it's close.
Sam Howell, the greatest quarterback Jared's ever seen.
I think he did look good at the joint practices, apparently. I'd go Rudolph.
I mean, again, we're getting into Nick Mullins territory now.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm sure maybe it's not a stretch to say that you would take Davis
I would definitely
Mills.
take Davis Mills over Mason Rudolph.
But I think top 10, if you're being honest, is easily true.
I got a text that say they would take Dobbs over Rudolph. I would not. I would go Mason Rudolph.
I would not either. I would not at all. I like Joshua Dobbs a lot, and you have to root for the guy. And he makes some tremendous plays. He did a great job when he came in here in a pinch and just had to just go out there and, hey, play the Cowboys and then play the Jags for the division. But no. And last year, good for him to get his starting opportunity, and then you saw what happened. I would take Mason Rudolph over Joshua Dobbs. I'm sorry.
Skyler says, Jameis sucks. He's just hilarious. Easy. First off, he is hilarious.
He is hilarious. He doesn't suck, but yeah, I don't want the QB2 where it's that much of an adventure. So I'm taking Mason.
Cleveland's not getting rid of Jameis. They talked about it.
What is the
they love
deal?
him.
Why was he in trade talks?
I don't know. I guess because
Have they not noticed that Watson hasn't even been able to practice
Well,
and that he also might
he
suck?
also is terrible, maybe. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Jameis is going anywhere. I think Jameis may have to start a few games for Cleveland this year at some point.
That's one of the most puzzling headlines I saw recently because it's like, what are you going to do then? Who else do they have there?
And what's that guy's name? He played for him a little bit last year. I'll look.
Oh, the Notre Dame kid still there?
Dorian Thompson?
Yeah, I think so.
That's it. I mean,
ETR?
It was a disaster last year. They went to Flacco.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe
about Cooper
maybe
Rush?
Jameis. Yeah, you know what? I don't hate that. I can buy that. I can buy Cooper Rush.
Okay.
But he's still easily top 10.
David says Chicago's backup is good. Is he? Tyson
Bagent, is he?
Is he?
Okay, I'll take Mason Rudolph. So
Brissett?
again, you're turning him into a Mason Rudolph homer.
Brissett's the starter. We got breaking news in the NFL. The Patriots have named Jacoby Brissett starting quarterback.
Which means Drake May is the backup. So I guess, and that's where it gets into this,
Joe Milton.
Yeah, Joe Milton is on the team, right?
I think so.
They kept him on the active, I think.
Sure.
How are you not following?
I have
Joe
not
Milton?
kept up with Patriots cuts.
Yeah, but it's Joe Milton.
I know.
It's all the VFL.
Apparently, they have Austin Hooper. So just figured that out with the highlights.
Is that right?
Played. Apparently so.
Okay.
So good for him.
Good for him. Yeah.
615-737-1025. Our phone number. More your thoughts on the Titans coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode 1025, 1063 The Game. Hey, Robbie Stanley here. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And we've got something a little bit different for you now through September the 22nd. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. So maybe you want to keep up with Nashville North, which is now turned into the Green Bay Packers. Malik Willis up there, Braden Arvison up there. Well, you can do that with this plan. Just visit FanDuel.com/Rob to download America's #1 sportsbook. Once again, that's FanDuel.com/Rob. Must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee. Full price of NFL Sunday Ticket will be automatically charged seasonally after free trial. No refunds. Terms, restrictions, and embargoes apply. Got a gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789.
You talked about how difficult the decision-making process would be. How do you feel like you navigated all of that as the head coach to arrive at, I guess, your first version of the 53?
Yeah, it was. Thankfully, I have a lot of help. That's the cool part is Rand and his staff and our coaching staff and the people that evaluate these players and pour into these players. And you have opinions about what we need and where we need to go. And that part was really, really smooth. I think everything about how we went through our process from the time that I've gotten here until now has been collaborative, and it was no different in this process. And so Rand and I delivered the news together to all the players, which I thought was the right thing to do. And that worked out really well, both positive and negative news. And didn't feel any different than anything else has felt since I've gotten here. So that part I think is really positive, and I enjoy that part because we got a lot of people that are good at their jobs, and we let them do it.
That's Brian Callahan yesterday. Can I hold a vote? Can we outlaw collaboration in all forms of that word just from here on out, moving forward from Titans press conferences?
To be fair to Brian Callahan, he wasn't here when all that became the buzzword.
I'm not trying to blame him. I'm just saying, can we just make it an edict moving forward that we just don't use that anymore?
Okay, so then what's the alternative word? If you're not allowed to use that word, then what word would you like? Because sometimes it is what it is, right? Partnering. Okay.
Yes.
Cooperation.
We cooperated.
Okay.
Worked together.
I think collaborative is okay, but collaboration, that specific word, is the one that just got bashed into our brains.
It did.
You know what I mean?
It did.
So
I'm glad they're working together, though.
That predated
Callie. I'm not trying to blame
Callie, as Stilly calls him.
Callie?
I think Stilly calls him Callie. Yeah.
Is it Callie and like Big Coach? Is that what we're doing?
Big Callie? Is it Big Callie?
Big Callie?
Big Callie and Little Callie?
Yeah. I don't know.
I need to
Who's the first person to call him Callie in a press conference this year? I'm rooting for
Has
Kuharski.
it happened?
I don't know. It's not going to be Kuharski, but I would root for that heavily because we never let it go.
I'm going Andrew. Give me Andrew. Give me 1 to 2 odds on Andrew.
Andrew, keep a safe distance from Jeffrey Simmons and don't call the coach Callie.
Yeah. Maddie says, I win the Dundee for most accurate Bobo take of the week because, yes, Maddie has Mason 9 or 10 on the list. Thank you. Also, can I just read Mark from Ashland City? I think sometimes sometimes texters come with excellent analysis and just really good insight that we need to deliver to the program.
To highlight.
So Mark from Ashland City says, I couldn't text during the segment, but my worst in sports is Jared's win on Jared versus Joe yesterday. Absolutely rigged because of the Mason Rudolph question. Also, the complete inability to understand context is incredible. Thank you, Mark.
Well, somebody else
could not agree more.
Jared thought Kenny Pickett was an MVP candidate last year.
Why didn't I bring that up?
Would he take Pickett over Rudolph? Honestly, when he said that, his opinions on quarterbacks are all null and void. Now, to be fair, I'm sure we've all had some spicy takes on quarterbacks out there.
Well, exactly. But the point is, we're talking about people now, and so you're going to go back a few years to what somebody thought of somebody, and then that's your evidence now? Like what? What? It's just, again, it's like there are some of these things.
Was an NFC Championship quarterback.
That is true.
2017, whatever that was.
Yep. That did happen. I mean, Dan Fouts, buddy, Pro Bowler. Dan Fouts lit it up. So why isn't he QB2-1?
Neil O'Donnell?
Sure.
Yeah.
He's in town. Why isn't he suiting up? Yeah, it's just like some of these things are not that difficult. And yet some people want to make them difficult just to go brain pretzel because their takes are bad. Anyway.
Good to have Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, Mason Rudolph's a good backup
We've
quarterback.
now reached the point of the year where you hope you see him again next preseason.
Yeah, exactly. I'm inching into NWI territory with my admiration for Mason Rudolph. So,
you're not gonna find a bigger Rudolph NWI fan than Rexrode.
I mean, Rudolph to NWI. Actually, we saw a lot of that this camp. NWI running with the twos, Rudolph with the twos. It was a pretty good connection. I will tell you.
Just throwing it out there. By the way, some other NFL news. So Jacoby Brissett has been named the starting quarterback for the Patriots. Russell Wilson has been named the starting quarterback for Pittsburgh did not, when he was on the stage yesterday, the podium, take the opportunity to say, Pittsburgh, let's weld. Huge missed opportunity for him.
God, that'd be amazing.
He is. I don't think that's going to go very well. That's just my guess. It's Pittsburgh. Like Pittsburgh, Tomlin always finds a way to be competitive. So, I mean, you can do worse than Russell Wilson. I would argue they have done worse than Russell Wilson with Kenny Pickett. But I don't see that lasting very long as him as a starter.
It's really interesting because the way Pittsburgh wants to play, you kind of you figure Russ is probably the better choice, which is probably why he's a choice, right? I mean, Mike Tomlin is definitely the Vrabel school of defensive coach, and we'll win 17-13, and we're not going to turn it over and all that stuff and play field position. With Justin Fields, it's a whole lot more feast or famine.
Yeah,
I would personally, if I have to watch a Pittsburgh Steelers game this year, I would much rather watch it with Justin Fields at quarterback than Russell Wilson. But yeah, I don't know. It's amazing to think about how wide the swings have been with Russell Wilson just in the last couple of years. We've been on this show. We've talked about, is he the best player in the NFL? That has happened while this show has been in existence. Is he the MVP? Is he the best player in the NFL? Holy crap, what an incredible trade for the Broncos. Are they a contender? Yeah. And now, how the heck is he starting in the NFL?
Pretty dramatic swing from that guy. In a
very
very short amount of time.
It goes fast.
It goes
Things happen fast in this league.
Robert in Spring Hill says, hey, Ryan Tannehill could be a good backup somewhere. He could.
Well, he won't be a backup somewhere. But right now, I will call a shot. Ryan Tannehill will be in the NFL this year.
Ooh.
And I don't know where.
Will he start games?
Well, yeah, because the answer is.
Will he start playoff games?
I don't know about all that. I mean, but the thing is, I don't think he's going to a team other than a situation like Cleveland last year, like where it's like, yeah, actually, they have a good enough team that you can get in the playoffs with them, which is what Flacco did, came off the couch, and it all went well until the actual playoffs. That's my prediction. Someone's going to get hurt. A team that's good enough to be in the playoffs, which is like if Gardner Minshew gets hurt, I don't think we'll see Ryan Tannehill because they stink. But at some point, we will see him.
615-737-1025, our phone number. More of your thoughts on the Titans on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Plus 1 point on the Titans. I think it's pretty interesting heading into the season that we'll get to coming up next. Tune in to 93.3 FM Totally Hits Nashville this Saturday for MTSU football. The Blue Raiders opening up the season at home in Derek Mason's debut, taking on Tennessee Tech. Pregame at 4:30, kickoff at 6 o'clock. Coverage also available on the 93.3 FM Totally Hits Nashville app and at totallyhitsnashville.com. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan today as the Sounds take on Charlotte. Pregame at 5:50, first pitch at 6:04. With coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com. Sounds Baseball presented by Twin Peaks, Family Leisure, 5 Points Roofing, and Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Also, make sure you tune in this Saturday to 102.5, 106.3 The Game for some Vanderbilt football. Commodores starting off their season at home against Virginia Tech. Pregame at 9:30, kickoff at 11 o'clock. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at thegamenashville.com. We are taking your thoughts on the Titans at 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Joe, I'm looking at this team heading into the year. And look, we've talked so much about roster decisions. Bottom line is most of these decisions they've made over the last few days aren't going to impact this team this year. Like Malik Willis is now the backup at Green Bay. He would have been the third quarterback here had they decided to keep him. Likelihood is he never plays, never sees the field. Narvison, we'll see. That one's interesting to me in terms of, is he going to turn into a long-term answer at kicker for the Packers? And did the Titans pass up maybe the chance to have an answer long-term at the kicker position? That one's intriguing to me. We'll wait and see how it goes. But I still feel good about this year's team with Nick Folk, given the way that he kicked a year ago. So, the last couple weeks here, so much gets made of who's going to make the team, who's not going to make the team, what's the roster construction going to look like. The bottom line is it doesn't really change the equation all that much for the actual NFL team this year because we've known for a long time the main guys and who they're going to be on this team. Having said that, I do look at the defensive side of the ball right now. With Ernest Jones coming in, who, by the way, did speak yesterday, you got the Ernest Jones situation alongside Kenneth Murray. And by the way, Kenneth Murray named a captain on the team, which I think kind of speaks to some things we've heard coming out of there.
Mm-hmm.
I still look at that group and I say, I like the athleticism. I like the aggressiveness that we think we're going to see in terms of blitzing. I still wonder, even with the addition of Diggs, the addition of Adams, now Molden is gone. You've got Jones up the middle. You've got Murray up the middle. Are the Titans still vulnerable in the passing game trying to defend the middle of the field? That I think is still a big question mark for this team heading into the year. And if so, how vulnerable? Like how vulnerable are they in pass coverage over the middle of the field? And you got to include McCreary in there too, right? Like he's going to play the nickel, he's going to play the slot. But how big of a concern do you think that should be for the Titans on the defensive side of the ball heading into the year?
Yeah, look, if you go by the advanced stats, you've got inside linebackers, and that's not their strength. You go by the eyeball test. First of all, I like a lot of what we've seen from Kenneth Murray, and it matches up with. I mean, it's not like he never made plays with the Chargers. He did, but it didn't all click for him there. There's been a lot of talk about the scheme change, so we'll see. I mean, I think it does seem to suit him, and I mean, if you watch Ernest Jones, that guy makes plays. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And by the way, on the Ernest Jones front, I thought Rand Carthon laid it out pretty clearly in terms of the knee thing yesterday, like even his relationship with the Rams medical people and things like that. I mean, it's a good point, the fact that when you're someone who has been in an organization and you have like real friendships, not just, hey, what can you tell me about this? That's why a lot of these deals do happen between people who used to work with each other, right? Because it's like, I actually trust that person.
There's a trust level, yeah.
And I felt, after Rand Carthon talked about it yesterday, I felt more confident that the knee is not a huge deal. But, yeah, it's still – that's not his strength either. So how does that look? Another thing Carthon said yesterday, which kind of goes along with this discussion, is the fact that Denard Wilson – has liked to play three safeties. We know that they have those options. So can they come up with something maybe involving Jamal Adams that involves that? Because, like, again, I understand Jamal Adams not you don't want him in the deep part of the field covering, but I think that at the second level, you can feel fine with him covering people.
I mean, I would hope so.
My goodness.
If not, right. I don't really know what's going on.
Is he going to be a defensive end next? What are we doing here?
Jamal, we need you to exclusively rush the passer.
Yeah,
that's the only thing you're doing here.
What about nose tackle? You more of a two-gap guy or a one-gap guy at nose tackle? Jamal, what do you think? So I think
Devondre, move aside.
Yeah, exactly.
Here comes Jamal Adams.
Devondre on the edge, Jamal in the interior. I think they at least have different things they can do there. They don't have, because obviously a lot of teams have a linebacker who, think about like the Niners and their backers and how versatile they do everything great. Like a lot of teams have like a linebacker who is good in coverage. David Long Jr. here, pretty good in coverage, and that was kind of his role if you're going to dispatch someone in that way, deploy someone in that way. So, yeah, I think it's a fair question, and Quandre Diggs has been a very good player in the league. He's been in the league a long time, too.
Yep.
I know Amani Hooker's good. Different scheme, but I think Amani Hooker is pretty not scheme dependent as a player. He's health dependent,
Yeah.
So I think if they're healthy, they at least have answers. But like you said earlier, Jamal Adams also isn't practicing right now.
Yeah, it's very difficult for me to get to. Well, I know injuries have been a problem for Jamal Adams basically for the last 4 years, but they're not going to be this year. We talked about that when they signed it. Like it's hard for me to buy that. I can't really get there. Now, can you get 12 games out of him? Can you get 13 games out of him in a 17-game season? Like, if you told me right now the Titans got 13 games out of him, I'd sign up for that. And I know people want more than that, but I would sign up for 13 games of Jamal Adams right now. Because
100%.
The recent history shows you may not get that.
I think with any of these guys, and I know like if you say that about Snead, boy, that is 4 games where you don't have your best corner. But I think with just about any of these guys, 13 is a heck of a lot better than it could be.
Ed asking the question, is this the most talented roster you've seen for this team, at least from the starters? It's from Ed.
What? No. How about the roster that had Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown and Taylor Lewan and Danico Autry and Jeff Simmons and Kevin Byard and what? No.
Ryan Tannehill?
Yeah, Ryan Tannehill. Bud Dupree.
Julio Jones. A lot of talent.
And obviously he didn't work out at all. But no, this is not the most talent. The roster of the 2021 team was absolutely more talented than this. This team, I would say, is more talented at corner than that team. But no, Danico Autry was a heck of a football player. David Long Jr. was a heck of a football player.
Yeah. Definitely not as good at edge.
That's why that team was the number 1 seed in the AFC, despite losing their best player. Ed, does happy hour start at 7 a.m.?
Look, in Ed's defense, they do have Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins, 2 very talented players.
Okay.
Burks is talented. It's about talent. Burks is talented.
Well, first of all,
Pollard is talented.
Starters. Yeah, I'm not saying they're not talented, but I think
Levis has got plenty of talent.
Yeah. Again, right now, and the league could be wrong, we could be wrong, but this is a team that's not projected to make the playoffs and is, 7. Right now, our guy, Austin Mock, has him at 6.8 when he ran 1 million simulations. That team, I don't know. I guess probably everybody still picked the Colts back. No, actually, the Titans were actually picked in 21.
I believe they were.
In 21, They were picked to win the division.
Especially after they
got the 1 seed. Yeah. That was a significantly more talented team. Now, that was the 20 draft and the 21 draft were sending them to where they are now, which is trying to rebuild their roster. And they've done a good job this offseason of adding talent. There's no doubt.
Would your answer change?
But I think we're not being mean enough to Ed.
Would your answer change if Mason Rudolph was the starting quarterback?
Well, that's an earth-shaking move. I'm sure it'll happen at some point. About a month or so, he'll take over. I'm kidding.
Got a text that says, "Did you guys just call Ryan Tannehill talent?" There was a baseline of talent. He was first-round pick.
Yeah,
he was not a total scrub out there.
Yeah, what? I don't want to.
I just feel like this sets you up every time.
I'm now pivoting to next segment. I'm sorry.
You're welcome.
I'll 615
yeah, thanks. 737-1025 is our phone number. We will have the Rex Ramp with Joe Rexrode coming up next. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports will be with us at 8 o'clock. We'll get his thoughts on the Titans, his thoughts on some moves the Titans have made, and headlines around the NFL as well. All that coming up. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant. Now on Robby and Rexrode.
Lord, I seen what you done, and I want the same for me. Please, swing at me, Jeff. Swing at me.
Skip Rexrode.
You both have had some doozies today. Like Jared saying the Titans are going to win 5 games. Like, you think they're going to win fewer games than they did last season with a last place schedule and Will Levis in his second season?
So Derek is saying
secondary.
Derek has said the same thing.
You cannot wear that jersey. You cannot like that
you
person.
You can do whatever
you cannot
want.
have green eggs and ham.
You can do whatever you want, but it's dumb.
It is that time of the day. Time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode.
That's all just from the last couple days.
It is.
Wow.
A lot of fodder going on.
Providing
right
lots of great sound bites. So
I
proud.
will say you cannot have green eggs and ham did make me chuckle yesterday. It was good.
Yeah. When I see you back away from the mic and laugh, I know that I've hit on one right there. Yeah, thank you.
And Kuharski just didn't break stride. He just kept going.
You can, but it's dumb. You can.
Didn't even appreciate the comedic genius.
I know. He doesn't laugh at my jokes. But thankfully you do sometimes.
I do.
So I guess I'll do a smorgasbord because now it's just coming at me from all angles, okay? First of all, the Tannehill thing, guys. Can we just stop this? I don't want to sit here and talk about the greatness of Ryan Tannehill. I really don't. It's like the texter's like, don't get baited, Rex. And I'm like, I will get baited. You know that I will get baited.
There will be never in either the history or the future of radio programming a bigger hype show for the combination of Ryan Tannehill and Mason Rudolph than we're getting ready to put out there today.
Between them, how many Super Bowls could you win?
Oh, boy.
But again, it's like, it's been from like YouTube and the radio chat today. It's like anytime he comes up, I have to ignore it. But like, here's a texter, okay, who will not name him or herself, and I don't blame you with these takes. Says only people in Nashville think Tannehill's a good QB, with the laughing emoji, which is like, okay, whatever. I'm rolling my eyes. But then I'm looking at the previous text from this person, which is, why is Treylon Burks still on this team? Someone screamed at us in the YouTube chat about that. Yeah. So let me pivot from Tannehill because I really don't want to talk about Tannehill anymore. I can't do it. He was a good quarterback. He was a Pro Bowl quarterback, right? Like Mac Jones, also Pro Bowl. I know that doesn't necessarily always mean something. Ryan Tannehill was a legit 33 touchdown, 5 interception, 3,800 yard. He had the best combination of yards per attempt and completion percentage since Joe Montana. Blah, 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 blah. Did he benefit from what was around him? Heck yes, he did. Just like Jared Goff does now. Top 10 quarterback in the NFL per the GMs. And if Ryan Tannehill was with the Detroit Lions the last couple of years, he would be right now top 10. He'd be tier 2, top 10 quarterback in the NFL. You're going to make me do this? I wasn't going to throw out some hot take, but that's true. So there's that. Also, this Burks stuff. Well, what do you mean? What, you want the Titans to cut him right now? What's the financial fallout of that? Because yes, Coy, who's just trying to make me have a heart attack, the cap is real. Maybe Jared has a point. Yeah, we all have a point. Those of us who, have any idea what's going on, that the cap is flexible. I think people are seriously messing with me now.
A 9-minute run.
Now, Jared is texting me, and actually I agree with Jared on the Ed take on the most talented roster. He's like, yeah, how about, McNair and Eddie George and Javon Curse and Keith Bullock and
Albert Hainsworth,
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. But I will take it easy on Ed. Thank you, Ed. He's on a 4-day college tour with his son. He said, go easy. So I forgive you. But I do not forgive you, Coy. Am I going to scream at you at the fantasy draft next week? Wow, the Browns. If this is something that you believe in, Coy, then I want you to go look. All the math is there. Like everything they did is available on the internet. Okay. And if it was fake, where you could just do this forever and ever with no limit, then I promise you owners in this league would make that happen.
The amount of times that Tannehill just comes up on our text line. It's just unbelievable. It's like lighting a fuse every time that he comes up.
And the thing that's crazy, I mean, look at this person. Tannehill is Bortles. Okay, that's dumb. Tannehill tops the list of Rexrode gaslighting. I'm not gaslighting. Like, guys, he blew it in the playoffs. He absolutely blew it. And that's on him. But you didn't watch him play at all prior to that?
He's the second best quarterback in Titans history. I feel like we've established that. I mean, it's not particularly close. Now, you could say that that's a commentary on Titans quarterbacks, and yeah, it probably is to a certain degree.
Sure.
And you're hoping that that Will Levis quickly enters into that discussion. But my goodness, you've thrown it out there, and it's a good question. It's going to be worth monitoring. When is the next time the Titans will get quarterback play to the level of Tannehill at the top of his game here? And I don't know the answer. You hope it's Levis. It may not be.
I don't know. But that is a high level of quarterback play, whether you like it or not. Like, I agree with what Glenn said. Jason and Clark's are a long fuse. I know. Yep. But I agree with Glenn from Greenbrier. He says, right or wrong, Tannehill will always be remembered for his 3 picks against the Bengals. Absolutely. I agree with that. No, I mean, look, he had it to a certain point, and that day destroyed an incredible opportunity for this team to go to the Super Bowl. I think this team at home against Kansas City would have had a really good chance to win that game based on how they kind of consistently matched up with them in that stadium. They blew it. That's why John Robinson was crying in front of us at the Combine and why it's all different now, right? Like, it goes back to that day. But, like, I think some people think that it's like Men in Black. You know, you drew the memory thing, and then all the stuff that happened prior to that didn't happen. It did happen. This is a stupid conversation, and it keeps coming up, and I just can't understand it. And then, is it the same people who are like, man, Mariota got screwed? I mean, Stilly said that. The Titans let Mariota down. Yeah. He was actually a great quarterback, and the Titans ruined him. Well, I don't think that's true either.
No.
Ryan Tannehill was a much better quarterback than Marcus Mariota.
Breaking
this is
news.
not controversial.
Yeah, breaking news. I mean, also, like, just quickly on the Burks stuff, there's no reason to cut Treylon Burks. Like, I don't. There's no reason to cut Treylon Burks. Now, that doesn't mean that you commit long-term to him.
No.
But there's no reason to cut Treylon Burks.
You've committed it. Your first-round pick, there's the financial aspect of it, but also, again, he's also your 4th receiver, and he's going to have to play this year. He's going to play. He's going to play even when they have everybody, and then someone's going to get hurt, and he's really going to have to play. And I think he's got a chance to make a contribution, not be a breakout star, but he's a talented player. And why would you cut that? Oh, and by the way, all the takes are coming out. All the takes are coming out. I have to read. Do I have time? Do I have time to read this
quickly
from Randy? Because this belongs. I mean, the Mount Rushmore is more like it's like a family photo. Okay, but Randy said, I sent this to Jared yesterday. He wouldn't read it. He says, the training staff is no more responsible for the different injuries than the equipment staff are responsible for a broken shoelace or grass stains ending up on a uniform. Thank you. Time to move on to something else. So I'm assuming this means Jared was talking about the trainers again yesterday. Unless you want to go back to each training staff over the last 25 years, compare number and types of injuries. Next time I go to my doctor and she says, your cholesterol's a little high, you got to maybe cut some weight, you're fired. I should be in great shape, doctor. It's your fault. Seriously.
This has been The Long Fuse with Joe Rexrode. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Thursday morning. And as we do every Thursday morning, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in our friend Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports. Charles, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, gents. How you guys doing this morning?
Really well. Appreciate you taking time to be with us. Charles, the Titans make a trade for Ernest Jones with the LA Rams. And first of all, let's just start on the Rams part of this. Why did the relationship, or whatever the situation is, why did it deteriorate with the Rams to the point where they were willing to trade him at the age of 24? Is it as simple as they don't want to pay that position? How do you view the Rams' decision to trade Ernest Jones at this point, heading into the regular season?
Well, it's a couple of things. I mean, clearly there are a couple of things I'm not going to say publicly, but then in terms of the Rams. But I think when Aaron Donald retired, they decided they were going to retool the defense, and I think part of that retooling was really reshaping the scheme completely, and what players they really wanted to prioritize in terms of how they were going to scheme it. And I think they knew this was a guy that was in a contract year they weren't going to pay, and so I think it was part of it was scheme, but it wasn't only scheme. And again, I don't know how public they're going to be about this, but I think they expected him to show up to camp in a little bit better shape, and he didn't. And I think they were upset about that. I think, he was a little bit over the weight limit that they thought he would be at when he got into Rams camp. And, I think they were not pleased about it. And, he started camp kind of under a situation where, I don't want to say they were immediately looking to move on from him, but, I think that was a motivating factor. And, the reality was he was getting cut. They were going to cut him at the end of camp if they did not trade him. And, I think that the trade offered them an opportunity to get something out of him. But, it was a surprise. I'll be honest. I went through, he had a good day at camp when I was there. He intercepted Matt Stafford when I was there, and I thought, okay, wow, this is good. He's stepping into this role that, I think they planned on long-term, prior to this camp, him being a leader and being a important piece of that defense. And that obviously is not what ultimately happened. And, but again, I think it's a little bit of a few different things, just not wanting to pay him, retooling the defense in a way that was different in terms of what the priorities were going to be and, where they would want to devote money. But I absolutely think that, they expected him to show up to camp in better shape, and he didn't. And, that was part of the reason why they ultimately ended up moving on from him.
Yeah, McVay was pretty testy with the beat writers the other day talking about this. So, okay, so out of shape. There's also been some kind of a knee issue. It doesn't sound like it's too significant, but also he's a team captain. He's been a very good player. How do you think this plays out then for the Titans? I know sometimes a situation like this will happen. Maybe he's not happy that he knows he's not going to get that second deal where he is. Right. He wants out. Do you see this being potentially a guy who now has that extra juice and is a good pickup for the Titans?
Well, it's a wake-up call. There's no question, because, I mean, I was stunned. I couldn't believe it when I heard, that he was on the outs there. And I, initially I was just like, okay, this is – I remember when I went through Rams camp in 2023, and I was talking to somebody there, one of their key decision makers, and he just straight up told me, like, when Aaron Donald retires, we're going to have to rethink what we do defensively. And it's probably going to mean that not only we're going to have to add a bunch of other young pieces, but we're going to have to change the way that we scheme, because they schemed the way that they drew up the scheme. It was very much dependent on what Aaron Donald did in the scheme. He was somebody who occupied every single snap at least two offensive players, and sometimes three. And that affected how they used the linebackers, how they attacked the line of scrimmage. And so I knew once Donald retired, oh, wow, they're going to change things. And then it also lost Raheem Morris, the defensive coordinator, in the process. So I knew change was afoot. But I also think that Jones, it was just expected in the organization that, okay, hey, this guy's coming in the contract year. It's a big deal. And I think they thought we're going to get the absolute best we can possibly get out of this guy. And then, I think they were just surprised that when he got there, they felt like he wasn't in, football shape. They felt like he wasn't where he needed to be ultimately. And I think that really motivated them to move on from him. I do think the coaching staff was upset with that scenario, and they knew this was on top of them rethinking how they wanted to scheme things. And so I think for the Titans, at the very least, look, you're getting what I think is a quality player, when he's at the top of his game, and I'm sure Jones will have something to say about this. And again, it's funny because I just don't think the Rams are going to speak on it publicly, when it comes to their exact motivation for, moving away from a guy that, as you said, team captain, what I thought would be a centerpiece of defense. And again, a player that when I went through, I was like, oh, had a good practice. And it definitely surprised me, down the stretch to hear that. And I had heard they were going to cut him. Like, that's what surprised me. I was like, wow, they're cutting this guy. Like, he's, they feel like they're going to bench him. They're not going to play him. And, he was going to get released, and that's why he got traded. So, I think the Titans, you're getting a player with talent, you're getting a player with youth. But there was clearly motivation from the Rams to separate from him. And I don't know how, as a player, you don't take that as a pretty significant change in direction from a franchise that should motivate you to go and play your best football in Tennessee. Obviously, again, nothing's changed. I mean, he's on the verge of being able to, sign a lucrative deal and be a big part of a defense. And I'm curious to know exactly what his response is to this whole thing, because as you said, I mean, the Rams staff clearly did not want to be questioned about it. I think they clearly had their motivations. It's a situation where I wish they would just say it, be honest about why they did what they did. But I think part of that has to do with, I guess not wanting to knock the player, in the wake of something like this.
So, Charles, Malik Willis was traded from the Titans to the Packers. A couple things on that. Number one, what do you make of the idea of Malik Willis as the backup for Green Bay? And I saw you tweet, I guess, this spreadsheet out the other day, which is just unbelievable to look at. The quarterbacks drafted in 2021 and in 2022, and how many of them are either on different teams or out of the league at this point, just 3 and 4 years later. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a bad run between 2021 and 2022. And it's, when I was going through the camp tour, and I don't know if I mentioned this on the show last week, but, I just happened to talk to a GM, and we were talking about the 2021 quarterback class, and, 4 of the 5 first rounders being pretty clear misses. And, he just went on and on about how COVID, not being able to get the proper evaluation on those guys and spend enough time with not only the quarterbacks, but pretty much everybody that was drafted, really resulted in a lot of really bad mistakes. Now, 2022, that class was viewed as a pretty tepid quarterback class. You had Kenny Pickett, obviously, who was the only first round pick. And he went, it was in the teens in the draft. And I think people knew, hey, the talent isn't quite where it was in 2021, what they thought was a bumper crop of quarterbacks, but clearly a ton of misevaluation in 2021. And then 2022, I think was not a great class. I remember at one point too, we all thought I don't want to say you guys, but I definitely thought Malik Willis was a potential first-round pick.
Oh yeah,
in that draft, and not at all. He slid significantly. Yeah, I mean, I had straight up. I had a GM tell me I would if we did not have a resolution at quarterback, I would take Malik Willis in the first round, and then he didn't take him like in any other opportunities after that either. So I was like, maybe I don't know how truthful this really was on the Malik Willis evaluation. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see him go to Green Bay because I think, do I want to say he needs a fresh start? Again, he was the choice of a, past regime. He's a player that probably fits in terms of like schematically what they want to do with the starting quarterback a little more closely. That's all I can figure. Plus, look, there was an asset to be had for Willis, and that's another guy that because they were keeping Mason Rudolph, you're going to cut him, and so you get something out of him. I know Joe. I mean, I don't know how much Joe talked to. I mean, I don't want to say this. Joe was. Do you want to talk about your evaluation of him in the preseason? You felt pretty good about him, right?
Wait, this preseason you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I thought he definitely got better. He's gotten better.
Yeah. Sure. Right. Yeah. I mean, so I mean, if you're the
Packers, I tell you who's about to be an All-Pro?
No. I'm not to suggest that. I just hadn't seen him enough, this preseason to know if he'd really taken a meaningful enough step to be the backup quarterback in Tennessee. I mean, I know what Mason Rudolph is, and I assumed when he was brought in, okay, that's really going to be the chosen backup, and Willis has got an uphill climb. So I don't think it surprises me at all that he's getting another opportunity elsewhere. If as you say, Joe, and again, I wasn't there enough to know for sure if he was taking another meaningful step, but that's 2 off seasons where, and I trust your assessment that he's gotten better. So he's still a player that, has his arrow pointed upward, and he will, he's the lockdown backup quarterback there.
Don't put too much on me. You're making me into the Malik apology. I mean, he's better. He's a backup. Yeah,
fair enough. Yeah, I mean, and ultimately, look, if that's the role that he's going to play in the NFL, I'm sure he's got the skill set to stick around for a while. But it makes more sense in terms of what I think. Green Bay is both doing schematically, and the Titans, as I said, I felt like it was pretty clear that they had chosen a different backup quarterback when they make the move toward Rudolph in the offseason, and it was just a matter of time before Willis ended up moving on. So not a huge, I think, surprise for me. I don't think he'll ever. I guess I just personally I don't envision him developing into a starting quarterback in the NFL. I think it's just certain, the time on task at times, the speed of plays, and I don't know. It felt to me like when I went through, camp, he was still, a tick slow on some stuff, and that's going to be a problem. And for most NFL teams, I mean, he seems to me like a guy who's going to take sacks, and quarterbacks who tend to take sacks and aren't getting the ball out fast enough, they never really ascend to be starters.
So if there's one thing that stands out, or maybe, it could be more than one, but really surprise you this week, Charles? And are the Lions going to have a third receiver on their team this year?
I mean,
who can play football?
Right? Don't you think it's got to be Patrick? I mean, he gets added to their practice squad.
Would you say Tim Patrick?
Yeah.
See, there you go. I didn't even know that happened. Yeah, that's not bad. That's why I come to you.
I mean, is that news? Did I not? I assumed that he had been added at this point to their practice squad. Has he not been added?
I believe.
Oh no, I haven't gone to my restoretheroar.com fan site today yet. I was counting on you.
Something out loud that hasn't happened yet. I haven't. I've been so underwater, like doing other stuff, I'm researching all this stuff for why all these other teams failed to complete 3-peats and working on that piece. And then, doing some stuff on NFC quarterbacks. And so I haven't been paying attention. So I thought I just said something out loud that hadn't happened yet. And
Yeah,
I'm
they got
like,
Allen
no.
Robinson too.
Breaking. Yeah, Allen Robinson's interesting.
Yeah.
So there's two. I mean, that's two veteran players that, frankly, Patrick. I think it's interesting because I think Patrick had a really good preseason for the Broncos. I also think that Sean Payton he had his guys like in at wide receiver. They drafted a bunch of young guys. I think he felt like he'd remolded the position, and it was more sort of like, I want to move on, especially when the guy hasn't been consistently healthy. That drives Sean Payton nuts. So it wasn't a surprise to me that, Patrick ended up being cut loose. And, Allen Robinson's just never turned the corner. He's had a couple of organizations where after the Rams, I think, there were the Steelers expected a lot out of him last year, didn't get it. The Rams expected a lot out of him, that really ultimately didn't materialize. And, so it's two veterans who are really good in the wide receiver room. And I actually think those are pretty decent additions for Detroit. Oddly enough, the most surprising thing to me that actually occurred was what happened with Ernest Jones. Like again, when I went through, he had a good practice and I'm like, oh yeah, young player who's now with, your superstar defensive tackle retiring is going to ascend this leadership role. And then it didn't happen. And it surprised me. That was really the one situation that developed where I didn't expect it because of the age and prior to this season where the trajectory was going. But I clearly didn't factor in what they expected of him showing up into camp, the injury stuff, the contract stuff, this whole confluence of things that ended up in him getting moved. But that to me was definitely the most shocking development in terms of a key piece of talent moving from one team to another.
Charles Robinson with us here on the program. So Charles, CeeDee Lamb gets the big deal. Jamar Chase has shown up to Bengals practice. And then there's Brandon Ayuk with John Lynch getting publicly frustrated yesterday, saying, at some point you got to play. What do you make of what this has now turned into with Brandon Ayuk? The Trent Williams situation still going on with them as well. What do you make of what this means for San Francisco as we're now less than 2 weeks away from week 1?
Well, I think the Niners are like, okay, you had the opportunity to shop yourself. you got other deals offered to you that would have seemed commensurate to what you were looking for, and you didn't want those. So now we've offered you, we've had offers with you that you don't want to take. You've got other teams where you've had offers you didn't want to take. What are we doing here? The market has said what you are. The money is what it is. I think that they're to the point where it's like either take this deal or we're not going to continue to do this hold in. And that's part of why, you have the doctors look at him and declare him healthy, because you have to have the ability now to make a decision on him. And I think, and I tweeted this yesterday, like, I don't understand how you can have him in the building, taking part in a hold in once the games start. Because now you have a player who's showing up to meetings, he's doing the lifting, he's doing all these things that normally he would be doing, but he's not going out to practice, and he's just like, I'm not going to play in games. Well, you don't give a player like that game checks. You suspend that player at that point. Like, you suspend him for conduct detrimental, and I think they do not want to do that. Like, they know that's sort of the sour note that could really, send this thing sideways. But at the very least, you got to be able to fine him and say, we're finding you're not getting game checks, obviously, once the season starts. So this hold-in stuff is now, it's a holdout. I don't know how you have a holdout with the guys in the building. That's the weird thing here, where I'm just like, and it's the same thing with Jamar Chase. I don't know, like, functionally how you are going to move forward with a player who's like, yeah, I'll keep showing up to the facility, but I'm not going to play football games for you until this deal gets done. That's where teams get put into a scenario where they're like, yeah, we just don't want you at the facility then. You can't be here. Like, you're a normal piece of the team, but then saying, I'm not going to step onto a football field for you now that the games count. So yeah, it's a really tough week, I think, for both of those organizations. They have to figure out what they're willing to do with these players. And I just don't see any scenario where they don't have to take some kind of significant retribution that straight up shows we're not going to keep doing this now that we're, to a point now where the games are starting. I will say this about the Bengals. I think the Bengals look at the situation with Chase and if they were being honest, they would say, hey, we'll take him to the end of his deal and we'll franchise tag him and then we'll just do it that way. We'll ride out a couple years of his career if we have to put a franchise tag on him, even though the tag is going to be really high because of salary, wide receiver salary. We'll go that route. The Niners are not willing to do that with Ayuk. Like, they want a resolution one way or another. Like, either, you'll take a deal with another team and we'll trade you, or if you want to be here, which they thought he had signaled that when he didn't take these other opportunities to be traded and sign deals elsewhere, they thought he wanted to be there. And now they're just like, okay, why do we keep wrangling on contract details that at this point should have been, finished? So, weird spots for both of these teams. Trent Williams, that's another one too, where I don't know. I think they know that they're going to get a contract adjustment done on them. But again, I think they thought it would have been done by now, and it isn't. And, that's another situation that's troubling. It's something that clearly should have been done by this point. And all I can say is I hope Brock Purdy ends up being worth this, because part of the reason why they're not paying, these guys in particularly Ayuk, is because they know they have to pay Brock Purdy down the line. And that's kind of pushed them to a crossroads in both of these situations with Williams and Ayuk.
It's all lining up for the Lions. It's all lining up. So give us a little preview, Charles. You said you're working on something on, obviously, the Chiefs, who I think have a great chance to three-peat, and the challenges. Give me if there's a thumbnail description of what you've discovered, and then also, do you like the Chiefs to three-peat?
I do. I think so. I talked to Tom Brady, a while back, and asked him just like, hey, you went through this, you've won Super Bowls, you had an opportunity to three-peat and it didn't happen for you. Like, what, you're looking at the Chiefs, what do you think? And, Brady just kind of went through the scenario of like how extremely difficult it is to win one Super Bowl. And you have to have this multitude of things line up just to win one. And he's like, now when you take that and you extrapolate it and you go to 2 and 3, it's just, there's just your run of luck has to be so good for you to win 3. You can't run into a hot team like in the playoffs. You can't like basically catch a team at the wrong time. You have to have the right playoff positioning. Injuries become such a huge factor. And, so there were 8 other franchises that had opportunities to three-peat, and none of them pulled it off. And so I basically went back and looked at all these seasons where they weren't able to get it done, trying to find sort of a common thread. And really it was a multitude of different things. So for like Brady, there were a ton of injuries. I think they ended up rotating through like between 40 and 50 different starters over the course of the 2005 season when they failed to three-peat. And they lost both coordinators. Romeo Crennel and Charlie Weiss went elsewhere. Like, Belichick didn't even have an offensive coordinator in 2005. And it was just, they got gutted basically by injuries. They lost Teddy Bruschi and Rodney Harrison in that same season. So those were like the 2 cornerstone leaders of their defense. Bruschi had that stroke, if you remember that year. It was like really weird. And those are the things you can't prepare for. So if I'm looking at the Chiefs, and I think there's no question in my mind, they have the talent to pull off a three-peat, and they've added a lot of, like, honestly, kind of banged up assets at wide receiver, but I think they've just layered it. But already you're looking like Hollywood Brown, right? You're dealing with an injury there. And Xavier Worthy, you're expecting a lot out of a guy that's going to be a wide receiver. If you ask me, why won't the Chiefs pull this off? It'll be injuries. Like, to me, I think the coaching staff's fine. They're in a really good place schematically. Andy is what he is on offense, Steve Spagnuolo on defense. I think from a talent standpoint, for the most part, they're bringing back a team that's comparable to what won the Super Bowl last season. But you're going to be depending on Mahomes again pretty significantly to cover up for some of those holes. You're going to be hoping that Travis Kelce can continue to be a high level player, even though, he's getting to that point where you're like, when is the turn going to happen for him? And, he's going to start to struggle as an elite level player. You have to hope that that doesn't happen this season. But I just think the thread that I look at that's most common amongst the teams that didn't win it, injuries just piled up. Like some of them aged out. The Steelers, when they had that second back-to-back Super Bowl win, they got to a point where like Franco Harris was done. Like Terry Bradshaw was starting to fade. And so, yeah, I mean, I think the Chiefs are a great team. I think there's definitely everything there to do it, but I think Brady's right. You have to have perfection in a lot of different ways, and I don't know that. I mean, that's just a lot to hope for the Chiefs to hit everything right and not have the injuries. And I would bet you that if it doesn't happen, we'll be talking toward the end of the season about some kind of injuries piling up or something significant happening from an injury standpoint that ends up scuttling them, kind of like when they lost in the Super Bowl against Tampa Bay and they had all those injuries on the offensive line.
Well, Charles, great stuff as always. Really appreciate you taking time to be with us. Next week when we talk to you, it will be NFL season,
Be
baby.
opening day.
I'm so happy, man. Yeah, opening day. I will be in Kansas City actually for that opener.
Nice.
Watch
All right, guys.
for $3 bills in that game. We'll see what
We
happens.
made it. Enjoy the Ernest. I'm sure the Ernest Jones stuff will go really well now that that's
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure it will.
We got it all ready to replay.
We will. Well,
all right,
thanks,
guys.
Charles.
Thanks.
Coming up next, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
but I also think that Jones, it was just expected in the organization that, okay, hey, this guy's coming in a contract year. It's a big deal. And I think they thought we're going to get the absolute best we can possibly get out of this guy. And then, I think they were just surprised that when he got there, they felt like he wasn't in, football shape. They felt like he wasn't where he needed to be ultimately. And I think that really motivated them to move on from him. I do think the coaching staff was upset with that scenario. So I think for the Titans, at the very least, look, you're getting what I think is a quality player, when he's at the top of his game. And I'm sure Jones will have something to say about this. And again, it's funny because I just don't think the Rams are going to speak on it publicly, when it comes to their exact motivation for, moving away from a guy that, as you said, team captain, what I thought would be a centerpiece of defense.
That's Charles Robinson with us in the last segment. If you missed it, go check it out, Robby and Rexrode, wherever you get your podcasts, thegamenashville.com, Apple, Spotify. Some very interesting comments on Ernest Jones, the newest addition via trade by the Tennessee Titans. Basically saying, contract year, Rams felt like he showed up out of shape, and went on to say in that conversation that he heard that the Rams are going to cut it. The Rams are going to cut him, and that's why they were motivated to move on, and that's why the trade ultimately happened. What do you make of what Charles had to say on Ernest Jones and how that all came together in L.A.?
Well, one thing I have to say is, Stilly, we'll take free lunch because we just gave you half your show today. So you're welcome.
Always down for lunch.
Yeah. Well, hi, Chase and Big Joe. Remember that lunch
that's going on about a year ago now?
Willie owes me a pizza for Askarov.
I'm getting you a pizza tomorrow.
And Keezer's buying pizza tomorrow. Yeah. We are going to be rolling, baby.
Yeah, we are.
Speaking of out of shape going into the season.
Fat and Bald Show right here.
But
pasty too.
Yeah, these are yeah, we were called pasty indoor cats yesterday on the chat. I think this is a great example of if something seems way too good to be true initially, it probably is. But because those are two nuggets that I had not heard all the things thrown around this week that Charles just delivered there, which are the out of shape thing. We've talked about the knee, and like I said earlier, I think Rand Carthon's explanation of the knee thing was pretty convincing yesterday in terms of who he knows in the organization and everything. And then the fact that they were going to cut him.
Yeah.
But I tell you what,
which is, by the way, why you need to listen to Charles Robinson every Thursday at 8 o'clock on this program.
Yes. And also you look at like McVay, and like, if you watch that presser, don't just listen, watch it. Because he did, I guess he still does Zooms with the writers sometimes.
He was upset.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, very, very much so. So look, it sounds like they were upset with him. Like, you're supposed to be a big time player leader, and you came in out of shape, and then things deteriorated. And again, that's that side. What's his side? I will say this for the Titans' perspective: sometimes something like this isn't all that bad for you, because you get a guy who is ticked off and comes in, and we know he's a good football player. So now he gets a fresh start, and that can serve as something that gives a few more one-arm push-ups in the morning and might work out well for the Titans. And they didn't give up much, and they slopped a fifth and a sixth.
They didn't. Now, the flip side of that is if all that's true, and he did show up out of shape, not in good football shape, and wasn't where the Rams wanted him to be, knowing that it's a contract year for him, isn't that a little bit concerning? Like, if there's ever a time to show up in shape and to be ready to go, it's probably when you're entering into a contract year, would be my guess.
Sure. Yeah, look, I mean, and this will be interesting. I know he talked to reporters yesterday, but this will get out.
This will get out.
And so it'll be interesting to hear what he said. But yeah, I know you're right. That's totally fair. I mean, he should, whether maybe he knows they're not giving him the contract, but either way, like, obviously you can't. I mean, you're being dependent on to that extent.
I mean, we're going right to the Robbie Stanley 5 guys, burgers, and fries approach. If you know you're not getting the contract from the team, just going all in.
I don't know. That 5 guys? I thought it was Cracker Barrel approach.
Gotta be versatile.
Okay. That's good to know that you mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I don't know. How out of shape are we talking? I mean, is he in shape now?
Right.
He showed up at camp and now he's in shape? It's what the football players used to do.
Right.
It's like, okay, I guess I cut down to half a pack a day and we'll lose this 10 pounds I need to lose during camp.
Right. Because surface level initial reaction is, wow, the Titans got a pretty good player, and all they had to give up was a 5th round pick. And really it was a pick swap. They got a 5th round pick and
they drop around.
Yeah. So like on the surface, it's like, wow, great job, Rand Carthon. That seems awesome. And maybe it works out that way. Like he has demonstrated to be a good football player when he's been on the field. So, I mean, there's no reason for me to think that he's forgotten how to play. But if all that stuff is true and he showed up out of shape, and if it's more than just the Rams didn't want to pay him because of the position that he plays, like that's one thing. That's an organizational philosophy, and that doesn't mean that you can't get a really good player. If there's something to he was out of shape, didn't have the approach they were looking for, to me, that's a little bit more concerning.
Yeah,
end of the year.
And look, I think even with all of that, as we've talked about, the Rams are going to be good this year. Now, it's like Chef Fran said on the YouTube chat, it's very interesting to think about this in terms of the scheme change, Aaron Donald, and all that stuff. But the bottom line is, like, I've seen enough of him play. He is a good football player. He has been a good football player. So, given where they are, there's him coming out of shape and all that stuff, but also like what they've seen in camp clearly. And that's another thing McVay was doing the other day is he listed like 4 guys who I guess he thinks they're all better than him now. So they watched him play in camp too. And these other guys, you could always do these other guys are better scheme fits, and maybe that's true. But I think at his best, he's a guy who's, again, like scheme is important. Scheme fit, that's important. And in some cases, it's really important. But if you're a good football player, then usually you got some scheme versatility.
I agree. And I think that probably applies to him. But, I mean, he has been a good football player. They've seen him perform well on the field, and they were thinking about cutting him. Like, wow.
Right.
I mean, that deteriorates quickly.
So is that more like he has regressed as a player because he's out of shape or whatever, the knee, whatever it is? Or is it more the other guys? I mean, we talked about Rashad Weaver. Is it more that Rashad Weaver is just ineffective and he just plummeted, or some guys here are just like, well, actually, Jalen Harrell is better than him, and good for Jalen Harrell. He made a move. I don't know. But the Titans, look, I like the move even after all this information, and especially because if this guy, he's a team captain, he has been a very productive player in this league. Whatever happened. You got to think he's going to be on fire this year
I would hope
to
so.
shut some people up, right?
I would hope so. We'll take your reaction to what Charles Robinson had to say on the Ernest Jones front, 615-737-1025. Plus, I got a real spicy college football take for you to end the show as well. All that coming up.
Ooh, good.
Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game.
Hey, folks, you're here talking FanDuel Sportsbook. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel because FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. But we have something a little different right now. From now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5, and you get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. I am a faithful customer of FanDuel, NFL Sunday Ticket, and YouTube TV. Big fan of all of them. This is really cool. You can watch any regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game with the YouTube TV base plan. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Get in on the action. Watch those future Super Bowl champion Detroit Lions. Just visit FanDuel.com/Joe102 to download America's #1 sportsbook. You must be 21 or older, present in Tennessee. Full price of NFL Sunday ticket will be automatically charged seasonally after the free trial. No refunds. Terms, restrictions, and embargoes apply. Gambling problem, call the Tennessee Red Line 800-889-9789.
Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode. I got a pair of tickets to give away to see Squeeze at Ryman Auditorium this Saturday, August 31st. Be caller 3-615-737-1025. 615-737-1025. Caller number 3 will win a pair of tickets to see Squeeze at Ryman Auditorium. Let's go to our 1025 The Game phone line. Welcome in Kyle to the program. Kyle, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, guys. Yeah, Charles said a lot of things that I've been pondering about and kind of theorizing. I think, like he said, he knew he was going to get cut, so he kind of pulled an Albert Haynesworth, came in out of shape, and just he knew he wasn't going to get a contract because the newer guys behind him were going to take his spot, and they were just going to move on. So he just decided, hey, let's force my hand. So they got a 7th-round pick out of it, and we got a starting real linebacker.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm out of breath.
Thanks for the call, Kyle. Appreciate it.
Well, but that's actually not what Charles
Hope you
said.
get back in breath.
Yes, get that breath back, Kyle. But that's not what Charles said. Remember, Charles said they had expectations for him coming to camp. The him getting cut, he didn't know he was getting cut. The him getting cut decision that Charles just told us from the Rams' perspective was after he came in out of shape.
Right.
So, you know, they to some level they were disappointed in what they saw from him this camp.
Yes, which again, if this is your contract year, and you got to keep in mind in this discussion, like this is the Rams side of things. There's always two sides to every story.
Sure.
Clearly, Ernest Jones, I think, wanted another contract. And was there a signal early on that he wasn't going to get that? How did that affect the way he approached things? How did that affect his relationship with the Rams management and front office? Like all those things factor into these discussions. So we're talking about the Rams' perspective on this. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. But if it is as simple as, man, he just showed up and wasn't what they thought he should be in camp, that's concerning to me heading into all this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's going to be really. But so again, it's like, I mean, the Titans have upgraded. I'm confident in saying that they've upgraded at a low cost. It's just not quite a move that should warrant a parade.
Well, it's why somebody like that gets traded at age 24. There's got to be something else going on behind the scene.
And the Titans have I mean, a Snead is to some degree, another example of someone who, if there wasn't the health concern, the market would have been different for him.
Andrew on the text line says, I can't believe literally no one is mentioning Molden being traded. Well, we spent the first 30 minutes of the show on it. And it's not like they traded Ed Reed. He's a nice player.
Maybe Harbaugh will turn him into Ed Reed. Yeah, look, we talked about earlier to give you a quick recap. I think holding on to Elijah Molden would have made more sense because of his versatility and because of their depth issues. He has his own injury concerns, obviously. His injury history is extensive, so there's that too. But the fact that if you had to in a pinch, could you throw him at nickel and put McCreary outside if you all of a sudden you run into corner injuries, which are certainly possible with this team. I just, to get a 7th-round pick back for him, that's a move that I think the Titans shouldn't have made.
Spicy college football hot take for you. We mentioned some games earlier. We
got games tonight, baby.
Well, there's one I purposely did not mention because I was saving it for this segment. Colorado taking on North Dakota State tonight.
Oh, I know where you're
going. They
will
lose.
That's tonight?
That's tonight. They are going to lose.
My goodness. I did not know we had that tonight.
They are only a 9.5-point favorite. So, I mean, first off, North Dakota State.
Oh, they're always solid.
Always pretty good.
Yes.
Well, for their level of football, always pretty good. Only a 9.5-point favorite at home for Colorado. That's my spicy hot take. They are going to lose tonight.
Okay.
The train goes off the track early.
Okay. Well, allow me to retort.
Go ahead.
I say Colorado covers, and I'll bet you the last slice of pizza tomorrow that Nick's buying us.
That's fine. I accept that bet.
Okay. There we go. I say Colorado covers. You say they straight up lose.
Yeah.
All right. We get my Joe Milton.
What happens if Colorado wins by like 4? Nobody gets the extra slice pizza. We just leave it there.
I guess Nick gets it.
Okay.
He's buying the pizza.
All right. That's fine.
It's fair. There we go.
Nick, we're
someone's going to win.
That you're buying.
There's going to be a win-win-win here. Okay. That's right.
I feel,
dude, I didn't know that game was tonight. I'm so excited.
I feel good about it. I think North Dakota State's going to win.
Oh, you could very well be right.
I feel good about it.
And if that's the case,
you would hope, like, for Colorado's sake, number one, I think their offensive line's gotten better. But you would hope that would be a game where, like, the talent of Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter alone is probably enough to carry you over the top. But I predict that it will not be.
Yeah.
Colorado loses tonight.
What time in TV? Give me time in TV on
7 o'clock on ESPN.
Heck yeah. Let's go.
So between me scouting NC State, I will also be watching that game.
And North Carolina, Minnesota. This is a good night.
College football's back, baby.
Love it.
Love it. We made it. A week from today, NFL regular season, opening day. Little Derrick Henry versus the Chiefs. It's football time, baby.
Love it. It doesn't get much better than that, folks.
We'll be back 6 a.m. tomorrow. Chase and Big Joe up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3, The Game.